The dying wolf collapsed at her feet, his silver fur soaked in moonlit blood. Lyra had never touched a wolf before, much less an alpha, but something in his fading eyes begged her not to run, not this time, not like she had every time danger pressed against her ribs. His breath rattled, his paws twitched, and when he tried to shift back into his human form, pain tore through him so violently she felt it in her own bones. She should have screamed, she should have run. Instead she knelt, and without knowing why, without knowing how, she began to sing. Her voice trembled at first, soft as winter glass, but as it wrapped around his wounds, the air thickened with something ancient, wild, sacred. The forest bowed, the night stilled, and the dying alpha's heartbeat, chaotic and breaking, steadily synced itself to the rhythm of her song. When his eyes opened again, glowing molten gold, his first ragged whisper sealed her fate. Your voice is the only home I've ever known. Begin the journey. Subscribe for forbidden bonds and destiny-changing secrets. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Should Not Have Been in the Forest. The forest was forbidden. Every child in the boundary villages knew that. Every adult repeated it like breath. And Lyra, who had never broken a rule in her life, clutched her woven basket tighter as guilt clawed its way up her throat. Just pick the herbs and go home before dusk, she reminded herself. But dusk had a way of arriving early in the moonshadow range, slinking between the trees like a living thing. She stepped carefully, avoiding roots that twisted like old knuckles. Her heart beat too fast, too loud, always louder than it should. Her mother used to say she had a tuned soul, that some people were born hearing more, feeling more. Lyra wished she felt less right now. She kept walking. The herb patch lay near a stream, and she'd almost reached it when the forest exhaled, long, low, and trembling. Wolves, several. Their howls echoed through the clearing, layered and urgent. Not hunting howls, not warning howls, pain howls. Lyra's breath hitched. Her feet froze. Turn back. Now, run. Every instinct screamed it, but another howl, sharper, breaking in the middle, cut through her like a knife. She stumbled, one hand clutching her chest. There was something familiar in that sound. Not the voice, the emotion, raw fear, hopelessness, and underneath it, a plea. Before she could stop herself, Lyra dropped her basket and moved toward the sound. Branches slapped her arms. The wind pushed against her. Even the forest seemed to shove her back. But she pushed forward, heart cracking open with every step. The clearing burst into view, and with it, devastation. A massive silver wolf lay crumpled at the center, surrounded by the faint sparks of dying runes. A trap, Alpha-enforced magic, crushed against his ribs like invisible jaws. 4 large iron spikes pinned the runes into the earth, glowing faintly blue. Lyra's stomach dropped. Hunter's magic, illegal, cruel. The wolf's breath came in shallow bursts. His fur was matted with blood, and each exhale formed a trembling whine that made something inside her ache. She didn't think, didn't breathe. She ran to him. "Hey, hey, don't move!" Her voice shook more than the wind. The wolf's golden eyes flickered open. Even dimmed by agony, they were bright enough to burn. Power swirled there, Leviathan deep and Alpha strong. An Alpha, not just any wolf, one strong enough that hunters needed illegal magic to bring him down. She should have backed away. But when his paw twitched helplessly, her feet took her closer. I can help." She knelt beside him, hands hovering. "I think, maybe." His growl was weak, barely a breath. His eyes softened, as if pleading. Her pulse thudded in her ears. "Okay, just Just hold on." The runes fought her touch, buzzing angrily as she reached for the first spike. They sparked, blue lightning dancing across her skin, but they didn't burn. They listened. That was strange. No time to question it. Lyra yanked the spike free. The rune flickered. The wolf hissed in pain. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry. Just a little more." One by one, she pulled the spikes out, her fingers trembling, her lungs squeezing tighter with each whimper he made. When the last rune shattered, the forest went silent. Too silent. The wolf collapsed. His body jerked violently, then stilled. "No, no, no, stay with me." Her chest burned. "Please." He wasn't shifting. That scared her. A wolf near death couldn't shift back, and she didn't know what else to do. Her throat tightened. "You're not dying. I won't let you die." He gave no response. Her hands hovered uselessly. Panic clawed up her spine. And then, her mother's voice whispered through her memory, "When you don't know what to do, sing, little bird. Your voice carries what your heart cannot speak." Her breath trembled. She lowered her forehead to the wolf's. Then she sang, soft at first, shaky, uncertain. A melody without words, just sound woven from fear and hope and desperation. Something shifted. The air thickened. The ground hummed. The wolf's breathing steadied, fraction by fraction, heartbeat by heartbeat. Lyra sang louder, tears slipping down her cheeks. The dying wolf lifted his head, pressing it weakly against her lap. His eyes, molten gold even in agony, fixed on her like she was the only thing anchoring him to the world. When her voice cracked on the final note, the last rune dissolved into smoke. The wolf collapsed again, but this time not from dying, from surrender, and then a flash of silver light, bones cracked, fur retracted, limbs reshaped, and before Lyra could blink, a man lay before her, a breathtakingly strong, beautifully built man, wounded, blood-soaked, trembling, but unmistakably regal, an alpha. His chest rose shallowly, his lips parted, and his voice, hoarse and breaking, echoed the same vow she would hear again and again in nights to come. "Your voice," he rasped, eyes locked on hers, "is the only home I've ever known." Lyra's world stopped, because nothing in her life had ever felt more terrifying or more right. Chapter 2. The Alpha Who Should Have Killed Her. The Alpha didn't move at first. He lay across the forest floor, chest rising shallowly, every breath scraping like a blade against stone. Yet even half-conscious, half-shifted, half-alive, he radiated something feral, an aura that pressed against Lyra's lungs until she struggled to breathe. Alpha power. Heavy, ancient, unmistakable, and it was focused entirely on her. Lyra tried to step back, but the moment she moved, his eyes snapped open, brilliant gold despite the blood streaking his face. A growl rumbled from deep in his chest, low enough to vibrate the earth beneath her palms. Her heart lurched painfully. The stories all said the same thing: never meet an alpha's gaze, never speak to him, never approach him unless you wish to die. Yet she had done all three. "Don't—" His voice was ragged, broken. "Don't go." Lyra froze. He pushed himself up on trembling arms, every muscle in his body flexed with the effort, the wounds on his ribs reopening, staining his skin in dark red streaks. He should have been collapsing. He should have been dead minutes ago, but he wasn't, because of her. His gaze dragged over her face with a weight that made her breath falter. Not possessive, not aggressive, searching, almost reverent, like she was something impossible. Lyra swallowed. You're hurt. You need help." A rough exhale escaped him, almost a laugh. "You healed me. No, she whispered. I only sang. I didn't heal you. You did. His jaw clenched. Your voice broke the spell. No human can do that. Human. He said it like it was a fragile thing. Lyra took a step back. I don't know what you mean. I'm just Lyra. His pupils narrowed. You're not just anything. The wind shifted, carrying her scent to him. His nostrils flared once, sharply. Pain flickered through his expression, then something else, something deeper. Recognition. His voice dropped to a shake. Moon above. She didn't understand. He forced himself to his feet, every movement agony, but he stood, tall and imposing even in wounded form. His hair, silver like his wolf, fell loose over his shoulders. His muscles were taut beneath torn skin, his entire body carved with the raw elegance only alphas carried. But it was his eyes, glowing, bright, locked on her, that rooted her to the spot. You have no idea what you are, do you? Lyra shook her head. I told you, I'm nobody. I'm a human girl, he finished, but his tone cracked at the edges. Except you aren't. Not to me, not to the bond. The bond. Her heart skipped. He stepped toward her. Lyra's breath caught. He wasn't threatening her. But the air between them pulsed with something fierce, alive, and impossible to ignore. A force she didn't understand, tugging at her ribs like thread drawn taut. Don't come closer, she whispered, though she wasn't sure she meant it. The Alpha froze immediately, not offended, obedient. He obeyed her. That terrified her more than anything else. His breathing deepened, controlled by sheer will. If I move, you flinch. If I stop, you tremble. Your voice calls me closer, but your fear pulls me back. Her face flushed. You're an Alpha. Anyone would be afraid. He shook his head slowly. Not like this. Not this kind of fear. What kind, then? She managed. Fear of what you feel, he said softly. Fear of why you feel it. The words struck her like a pulse of heat. Lyra opened her mouth to speak, but a howl ripped through the forest. Sharp, distant, frantic. The Alpha stiffened. Lyra looked around nervously. Others are coming. No. His jaw tightened. Hunters. They triggered the trap. They realized someone broke it. Her chest squeezed. We have to hide. We? His golden eyes flicked to her, unreadable. Little one, if they find you with me, they'll kill you first. They'll think you're my accomplice. Lyra's throat dried. He took a breath, pained but steady. You've already risked enough. Go, run to your village. Forget you saw me. Something inside her snapped. No. His brow furrowed. No. You're injured. You can barely stand. If they find you like this, they won't, he said coldly. I can shift and run. That will reopen your wounds. I've survived worse, and you'll die from this. Silence fell. He stared at her with a look she didn't understand, like he was torn between tearing the world apart and kneeling at her feet. I cannot drag you into my war, he said quietly. Then heal first, she insisted, just long enough to move properly. My home is close. Hunters never go near the village edge. He laughed under his breath, astonished. You want me? In your home? You'll die otherwise. You're bold for a human, he murmured. Lyra's cheeks warmed. I'm just trying to keep you alive. His eyes softened, dangerously so. As if my life matters to you. She hesitated, too long. His breath hitched. It does, he whispered. Moon above, why does it matter? Lyra didn't answer. Because she didn't know. She only knew she couldn't walk away, couldn't leave him bleeding in the leaves. couldn't stop thinking about the moment his heartbeat steadied under her song. The Alpha inhaled shakily. "If I go with you, they'll scent me. Not if we take the creek path. You thought this through." "No," she whispered, "but I don't want you to die." Something inside him broke open. He stepped closer, very slowly, giving her time to step away. She didn't. He lowered his head, gaze level with hers, golden eyes burning like molten metal. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra." He said it once, softly, as if testing how it fit in his mouth. Then again deeper, like a vow. "Lyra." Heat shivered through her. She swallowed. "What's yours?" His jaw clenched. He hesitated. Why would an Alpha hesitate to speak his name? At last he whispered, "Kale." Lyra blinked. "Kale." A tremor ran through him. His breath stuttered. "You don't know what you're doing," he said hoarsely. "Saying my name like that. Saying it how? Like you're meant to hold it." Lyra's heart slammed against her ribs. Kyle stepped back abruptly, pinching the bridge of his nose as if steadying himself. "We leave now, before the hunters close in," she nodded, grabbing her abandoned basket. But as she moved ahead of him, Kyle froze behind her. "Lyra." She turned. His gaze softened in a way that made the world tilt. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. "No matter what happens. Don't run from me again." "I didn't run." "No," he murmured. "But you might. And I don't think I could let you." Her breath caught. He exhaled, fighting something she didn't understand. "I can feel you. Every step you take, every fear, every thought. Something inside me reacts." Her pulse raced. Kyle pressed a hand over his ribs, fingers trembling. This should not be happening. Not with a human. Not after one song. Not. He stopped himself. Not what? Lyra finally whispered the question. "Kale, what am I to you?" He stared at her for a long moment, then said, voice raw, "Everything I should never have." A shiver rippled down her spine. "Let's go," he added, turning away before she could ask more. "If you stay near me, I can protect you." Lyra followed him down the narrow path, the cold rush of the creek waiting ahead. But as they walked, her footsteps quiet, his heavy and pained, she felt it. The air between them, charged, pulling, threaded. And with every beat of her heart, the impossible truth pressed harder against her ribs. The Alpha wasn't the only one who felt the bond. Chapter 3. The Voice That Should Not Exist. The creek path was narrow, hidden beneath a canopy so thick that sunlight broke through only in splintered silver shards. Lyra moved first, parting low branches and stepping over slick stones. Kyle followed behind her, silent but powerful, his presence dragging the air down with a weight she could feel on the back of her neck. Even weakened, he was overwhelming. Every shift of his body made the undergrowth shiver. Every breath carried that wild Alpha energy that sent her heart tumbling into chaos. But he kept a careful distance. Not far. Just far enough that she felt it. Restraint. Like he was fighting something every time his gaze settled on her, and it settled on her often. When her foot slipped on mossy stone, Kyle was there instantly, his hand gripping her arm before she could fall. She sucked in a breath at the heat of his touch. He released her so fast it startled her. "Sorry," he muttered, jaw tight. "Reflex." "It's fine," she whispered. "It isn't." His voice was rough. "Every instinct I have reacts to you." Lyra tried to steady her heartbeat, but it thudded louder. Kyle exhaled sharply. "This bond is reacting too fast." "There's no bond," she murmured. He stepped closer, enough for her to feel his breath against the nape of her neck. "You felt it," he said quietly. "Back in the clearing. When you sang—" She didn't answer, because she had. That strange pull in her ribs, like something ancient was waking inside her bones, something tied to him, connected to him, calling him. She still felt it now, humming under her skin. Kyle moved past her, limping slightly but still graceful in a way no wounded human could be. "Your village is close?" "Yes, good." He scanned the trees with narrowed eyes. "Hunters will track the broken runes. We need to stay ahead." Lyra nodded, guiding him through the final curve of the creek. Her home appeared through the trees, a small cottage tucked into a hill of lavender bushes, smoke from the hearth curling softly into the sky. It looked peaceful, so ordinary. Kyle stopped dead. "That's where you live?" "Yes," she said quietly. "With my grandmother." Something in his expression cracked for a split second. Relief? Pain? Regret? She couldn't tell. "Your scent is all over this area," he murmured. "Strong, familiar." His voice dipped lower. "Too familiar." Lyra frowned. "What does that mean? Nothing you're ready to hear yet?" She bit her lip but didn't push. Kyle straightened his shoulders, attempting to hide how much standing hurt him. "Very well. Lead the way. But don't be alarmed. When I cross your threshold, the house may react. React how? It will either welcome me," he said slowly, "or try to crush me." Lyra blanched. "What? Why would the house crush you?" "Old magic," Kyle said. "Homes built near wolf territory sometimes have protective instincts." "You're telling me my cottage has instincts?" "Doesn't everything in these woods?" His mouth twitched. "Including you?" Her face warmed. She turned quickly toward the door. Just come carefully." The cottage door opened with a familiar creak. Warmth washed over them. Her grandmother wasn't home. Lyra had expected that. She was likely out tending to the herb garden or delivering salves to villagers. But Kyle didn't move. He stood at the doorway, muscles tense, eyes narrowed like the threshold itself was a battlefield. Lyra reached for his wrist without thinking, her fingers brushing his skin. Kyle inhaled sharply. "Lyra," he warned. "Just try," she whispered. Kyle hesitated, then stepped inside. Nothing happened. The cottage settled around him with a soft sigh, wood beams relaxing, herbs swaying from the ceiling, the hearth crackling warmly as if greeting an old friend. Kyle blinked. The house hadn't rejected him, it had embraced him. Lyra smiled in relief. "See? That wasn't so." The moment she released his wrist, he stumbled, catching himself on the table but still wincing in pain. She hurried forward. "You need to sit." Kyle allowed her to guide him onto a low wooden bench, though the way his muscles coiled told her he didn't like appearing weak. He exhaled slowly, jaw clenched as he leaned back. Lyra retrieved a bowl of warm water and clean cloths from the cupboard, hands shaking slightly. She'd tended to wounded animals before, even wounded villagers, but never someone like him. Never someone whose gaze felt like it pierced the deepest parts of her. She knelt beside him. Kyle stiffened. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said gently. His breath caught, barely audible. She pressed a warm cloth to the dried blood near his ribs. He flinched. Not from pain, from her touch. "You're too close," he murmured, voice nearly a growl. "I'm treating your injury. That isn't the problem." Her cheeks flushed. "Then what is?" Kyle looked at her like she was the only thing keeping his world steady. "When you're close," he said softly, "the bond surges." Lyra's heart skipped. "I don't understand. You're not meant to—" His voice broke slightly. "Not yet." Silence settled between them, Heavy, fragile, charged. Lyra wrung out the cloth. "Does it hurt? The wound?" he asked. "The bond?" He stared at her. "Yes." Her hand trembled. "Why?" "Because you're human," he said. "And because I—" He cut himself off. His jaw clenched hard. Lyra's breath tightened. "Because you what?" Kyle leaned forward suddenly, bracing his forearms on his knees, face buried in shadow. "Because I shouldn't want to be near you this much." The confession punched the air from her lungs. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Kyle lifted his head, slowly. His eyes were molten gold again, glowing brighter in the dim cottage light. "You don't know what your voice awakened," he said. "You don't know what you did to me in that clearing." "I only sang," she whispered. "No." His tone sharpened. "You did what no human has done in a century. You broke Alpha binding magic." "With your voice." Lyra swallowed. "I don't know how, or why." Kyle's gaze softened. "I do." Before she could ask, the ground trembled lightly beneath their feet. Kyle's posture changed instantly, wolf-sharp, rigid, alert. "They're close." Lyra stood. "Hunters?" "No." Kyle inhaled deeply. "Wolves," she blinked. "Your pack?" "Yes." He frowned. "And they're moving fast." She rushed to the window. Shadows flickered at the edge of the trees, low, swift forms slipping between trunks like streaks of smoke, growing closer. "Will they hurt my village?" "No. They're coming for me." Lyra's heart raced. "Then you need to hide." Kyle shook his head. "I don't hide." She stepped toward him, fear tightening her voice. "You can't fight in this state." His eyes snapped to hers. "You think I need to fight?" "Yes." "No." He rose slowly, towering over her despite his pain. "I need to protect me," she breathed. Kyle didn't answer with words. He moved to the center of the room, shoulders rising and falling with deep, controlled breaths. His eyes flared bright gold, pupils thin as slivers. "The moment they scented your voice on me," he murmured, "every alpha in the region felt the shift." "What shift?" "The claiming call." Lyra's stomach flipped. "Kyle, I didn't claim you," he quickly said. "I would never, never bind a human without consent or understanding." His jaw tightened, but the bond reacted on its own. Lyra stepped back, heart hammering. "What does that mean?" Kyle finally faced her fully. "It means," he said quietly, "that every alpha will come to see what kind of human can heal my spirit and break magic with a single song." Her breath stilled. "They will test you, Lyra," he continued. "They will judge you. Some may try to take you, some may fear you." His voice hardened. "And some may wish you dead." Panic surged through her chest. Kyle took one step toward her. "I will not allow any of them to touch you." The way he said it, fierce, unfiltered, absolute, sent a shiver down her spine. "You don't even know me," she whispered. Kyle's expression softened, achingly so. "I know what you feel like in my soul." Lyra's knees nearly buckled. He reached toward her, but stopped just inches away, trembling from the effort of holding back. "I can't touch you," he said hoarsely. "If I do, the bond will snap into place, fully, irreversibly." Lyra's breath shook. "And what happens then?" Kyle swallowed hard. "I will become yours," he whispered. "In every way an alpha can be." Her heart thudded painfully. Before she could speak, a howl shattered the air outside, deep, commanding, unmistakably alpha. Kyle's head snapped toward the door. "They've arrived." "Your pack?" Lyra asked. "Yes." "Will they attack?" "No," Kyle said. "But they'll want answers." He turned to her, eyes burning with urgency. "Lyra, nothing you say or do now is small. Every word will echo. Every gesture will be judged." She nodded shakily. "What do I do?" He stepped closer, so close his breath warmed her cheek, though he didn't touch. "Stay behind me," he murmured. "Speak only when spoken to, and if they threaten you—" He paused, jaw tightening. "I will break every law to protect you." Lyra's breath caught. "Kale!" The door burst open, and 3 wolves stepped in, massive, dark and powerful, only to shift in an explosion of silver light into 3 imposing men with eyes like storms. The first one locked his gaze on Kael, and then on her. Then he spoke the words that made Lyra's blood run cold. "Alpha Kael, tell me this is not the human whose voice reached the bond thread." Silence. Kael stepped in front of her, blocking her completely from view. "My pack," he growled, voice low and lethal. "You will not touch her." Chapter 4. The pack that bowed to her voice. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved. Kael stood like a wall of silver and shadow in front of her, broad shoulders squared, every inch of him bristling with alpha power despite his wounds. His body blocked her completely, so fully that Lyra could hardly see past him. She only caught glimpses of the 3 wolves in human form standing inside the doorway. Massive, barefoot, eyes glowing with that unmistakable lunar fire. They were intimidating in a way that felt carved into their bones. But none of them looked at Kael. All 3 were staring at her, or rather, the place where Kael was hiding her behind him. The cottage felt too small, too warm, too quiet. The first man spoke again, tall, dark-haired, cold-eyed. "Alpha Kael," he repeated, voice edged with disbelief. "Move aside, we need to see her." Kael didn't move an inch. "No," he said flatly. A ripple of shock shuddered through the room. One of the other wolves, broad-shouldered, with hair the color of night frost, stepped forward. "Kael, you never refuse the pack." Kael's voice dropped into a low growl. "I do now." The tallest wolf bristled. "You hide a human behind you, and you expect us to stand down. Explain yourself." Lyra felt Kael's muscles coil tighter, like he was preparing for a fight. But she didn't want a fight, not with wolves who could tear the cottage apart in seconds. She swallowed hard and touched Kael's forearm lightly. He froze. Slowly, painfully slowly. He turned his head to look at her. "Lyra," he whispered, warning in every syllable. "Don't." "It's okay," she said softly. His eyes said it's not, but she stepped from behind him anyway. 3 sets of wolf-gold eyes widened. Kael swore under his breath. "I told you to stay behind me." She offered him a tiny, shaky smile. "I don't want you hurt." Pain flickered across his face, sharp, unguarded, raw. He was speechless. The tall wolf, apparently the beta, finally took her in fully. His eyes narrowed. "She's human." Lyra nodded nervously. "Yes." The beta inhaled deeply, scenting the air. His expression changed instantly. Shock, recognition, and something like awe. "She carries your bond thread," he whispered. Kael stiffened. "No, she doesn't. It wasn't a claiming. You think I can't smell it." The beta snapped. Lyra froze. "Bond thread?" Kael stepped forward immediately. "Stop. She doesn't know anything yet." The third wolf, younger, ginger-haired and bright-eyed, looked between Lyra and Kael with growing excitement. "Is she the one who sang?" Lyra swallowed. Yes." All 3 wolves inhaled sharply in unison. Kael snarled. "Don't scent her like prey." "Prey?" the beta murmured. "No, Alpha. Not prey. Something far more impossible." He circled slowly, respectfully, never too close, studying her as if she were a puzzle that shouldn't exist. Kael moved with him, always blocking, always guarding. The beta finally exhaled. Her voice broke the binding runes. A human voice. The younger wolf whispered, "Humans can't break runes." Kyle's jaw clenched. "I know," he said quietly. But she did. Silence. Lyra felt very small under their stares. The dark-haired beta tilted his head. "Human girl, what are you?" "I don't know," she whispered. Kyle shot the beta a glare so sharp it could have sliced stone. "She's Lyra. That's all you need to know." But the beta wasn't listening. He stepped forward, one step too close. Kyle lunged, shoving him back with a snarl so fierce it rattled the walls. "Do not approach her." Lyra jumped at the sound. Kyle immediately turned toward her, worry flooding his face. "Lyra, did I scare you?" "No," she said instinctively, though her heart was racing. His expression softened for a heartbeat before he turned back to his pack, deadly again. The beta raised his palms. "Easy, Alpha. I'm not trying to hurt her. You will if you push too much," Kyle growled, "and I won't let that happen." The beta studied him quietly. "You're protective. She saved my life. Many have saved your life. You've never acted like this." Kyle's voice dropped into something dangerous. "She's different." "Yes," the beta said softly. "We smell that." He turned to Lyra. "What did you sing?" She hesitated. "A lullaby. My grandmother taught it to me." "What was the name?" Lyra thought hard. "She never told me. It was just something she hummed when I was scared." The wolves exchanged looks. Kyle frowned. "What?" The beta's expression turned grim. "Old songs have power. Some open, some break, some bind." Lyra's blood chilled. "Are you saying my grandmother gave me magic?" "She may not have known," the beta said. "But the song wasn't ordinary." Kyle stepped closer to Lyra, so close his shadow wrapped around her feet. "Lyra," he said quietly, "your voice didn't just calm me." He swallowed. "It called me." She felt her heartbeat stutter. The younger wolf spoke next. "Alpha, tell her the rest." Kyle closed his eyes as if the words hurt. "When you sang," he whispered, "my wolf bowed." Lyra stared at him, breath frozen. "Bowed?" she echoed. "Wolves bow only 3 times," the beta said. "To the moon, to death." He looked straight at her. "Or to the one their Alpha is destined for." Lyra's stomach dropped. "No," she breathed. "That can't be." Kyle shook his head. "Destiny is not a chain. You don't owe me anything." The younger wolf stepped forward before Kyle could stop him. "What did you feel when you sang?" he asked gently. Lyra opened her mouth, then closed it. She felt Kyle watching her, waiting, afraid of her answer. Lyra met all 3 wolves' eyes. "I felt—" She swallowed. "Like something inside me woke up. Like something was listening." Kyle's chest rose sharply. "That's the bond thread," the beta whispered. "It responds at the moment 2 souls recognize each other." Lyra's knees weakened. She gripped the table for support. The beta studied her with dawning reverence. "No wonder Kyle is protective. Human or not, you carry the moon mark without even knowing." Lyra blinked. "The what?" "Moon mark," he repeated. "A spiritual imprint. Rare, ancient. It appears only on those whose voices can touch the spirit of a wolf." Kyle snarled, stepping between them again. "Enough. She's overwhelmed. She needs to hear the truth," the beta said. "She needs to breathe." Kyle snapped. Silence fell again. Then the younger wolf softened his tone. "We didn't come to harm you, Lyra. We came because we felt your song." Lyra trembled. "How?" "You were miles away. Alpha magic travels," the beta murmured. When Kyle felt the bond thread stir, the entire pack sensed the shift. Kyle tensed. "And now that you've seen her, you'll leave." The beta's brows rose. "Leave? Kyle, we can't leave her unprotected." Kyle's posture turned lethal. "You will not take her." "We're not trying to," the beta replied. "But the other alphas will come." Lyra's pulse spiked. "Other? How many?" "All of them," the beta said softly. Every alpha for miles felt the surge. Lyra paled. Kyle's expression hardened like stone. "No one comes near her." "Then we need to move her," the younger wolf said urgently. "Hunters are out. Other packs are already tracking the ripple. She's safer among wolves than humans." Lyra took a sharp step back, panic rising. "I can't just leave my home." Kyle turned to her instantly. "She's staying here." The pack stared at him. The beta sighed. "Kyle, she's in danger." Kyle's eyes blazed. "Then I will stay." Lyra's heart flipped. "Kyle," she whispered, "your wounds. Don't worry about my wounds." His voice softened only for her. "I won't leave you unprotected." The room filled with a tense, aching silence. Then the beta spoke carefully. "You'll remain behind in a human village, injured, vulnerable, for a girl you've known for hours." Kyle didn't hesitate. "Yes." The younger wolf stared at him. "Why would you do that?" Kyle finally answered, the first honest, fragile truth, because when she sang, "I remembered what hope felt like." Lyra's breath caught. Kyle continued, voice barely above a whisper, "And because her voice is the only place my spirit has ever rested." The pack fell utterly silent. No one dared speak. No one dared move. Even the air held its breath. Lyra felt something inside her begin to shake, something deep, ancient, and terrifyingly bright. Kyle didn't look at his pack. He looked only at her. "Lyra," he whispered, "I don't know what you are to me yet, but I know what you're not." Her chest tightened. What am I not? A mistake. Everything inside her shivered. Kyle stepped closer, not touching, but close enough she felt the gravity of him. "I will face every alpha," he vowed softly, "every hunter, every curse. But I will not let them take you from me." Lyra's throat tightened with emotion she didn't understand, couldn't understand. But before she could speak, a howl split the air outside. Not one, many, dozens. The beta's face paled. "You spoke too soon, Kyle." Kyle snapped around. "What do you mean?" The beta swallowed hard. "The other alphas," he said. "They're here. Chapter 5. When an alpha breaks, the moon trembles. The healing chamber filled with a dim silver glow, the kind that rises only on nights the moon herself is listening." Kyle paced, back and forth, like a caged storm wearing a man's shape. Lyra sat on the low stone bed, hands curled into the blanket, watching him with a rising fear. Fear not of him, but for him. Because Kyle didn't pace, he was an alpha. Alphas patrolled, commanded, dominated. They didn't pace like lost creatures afraid of their own shadows. But tonight, Kyle's shadows were alive, and every growl he swallowed shook her bones. "You should rest," Lyra whispered, hoping softness might reach him. Kyle froze. Slowly, his eyes, those wild molten gold eyes, lifted to meet hers. Her breath stopped. Because this wasn't the Alpha King who had faced down hunters. This wasn't even the wolf who had nearly died in her arms. This was a man stripped raw and terrified. "Rest?" His voice cracked into a hoarse laugh. "Lyra, you don't understand." He stepped closer. The glow of the moon pool cast silver edges along his shoulders, outlining strength built through battle, through loss, through centuries of leadership. And yet none of that power protected him from the storm inside his chest. Each breath he took was a fight. "I almost lost you today." Lyra flinched. "It's me who found you dying. And if you hadn't," his voice thundered, echoing off the sacred stone, "if your voice hadn't answered me, if your feet had taken you anywhere else in that forest." He took another step toward her. Lyra's heart thudded painfully. Kyle wasn't angry at her. He was angry at the universe, at fate, at the possibility that she could have been nowhere near him when death wrapped its claws around his throat. "You have to understand," Kyle whispered, kneeling in front of her before she could react. "Alphas don't fear dying." He lifted his hand, slowly as if asking permission, and brushed a trembling thumb against her cheek. "Alphas fear losing what the moon mark has given them." Lyra's throat tightened. "Kel, I'm not yours." She couldn't say it. The words wouldn't come, because even if she didn't know what she was to him, even if she didn't understand why her voice had awakened something ancient inside him, she had felt that pull too. But Kyle misread her silence. His hand dropped, his eyes dimmed. "You truly don't feel it then." He stood, not quickly, but like a giant whose bones suddenly weighed too much. Lyra shot to her feet. "Kel, wait, I didn't mean, you feel nothing?" he asked again, but this time it wasn't a question, it was a wound. Her chest burned. "Of course I feel something. I just don't understand any of this, what I am to you, why my voice did, whatever it did." Kyle stared at her a long time. Then he exhaled, a slow, tormented exhale, before whispering, "You're my Voxer." Lyra blinked. "Your what?" His jaw clenched. Voxer, the heart voice, the soul call, the one whose song can anchor an alpha's spirit, the one fate chooses, not the moon, not the pack, not even the alpha himself. Lyra's pulse roared. That sounds like a myth." Kyle's lips twitched. "Most things that matter begin as myths." He turned away, running a hand through his hair as if afraid to face her reaction. "I never believed I would have one," he said quietly. "Most alphas don't. Voxer bonds happen maybe once in 1,000 years, and they break every rule our world has." Lyra's mind flashed back to the forest, his dying body, her trembling song, the way the air had thickened, alive, ancient, listening, the way his heartbeat had steadied under her voice. "What does a Voxer bond mean?" she asked, barely breathing. Kyle looked over his shoulder. The answer in his eyes struck her like lightning. "It means," he said softly, "that your voice can command my wolf, and your presence can either heal me or destroy me." Lyra staggered back. "That's too much," she whispered. "I know. It's too dangerous. I know. I'm just a girl from the border villages. I'm not meant to—" Kyle's hand slammed against the stone wall, not near her, not threatening, but like a man fighting not to break. "You were meant," he growled, "because fate doesn't choose wrong." Lyra pressed her back to the bed for support. "Kyle, stop saying my name like that." Her breath hitched. "Like what? Like you don't know the effect it has." Heat climbed up her neck. This wasn't flirtation, this wasn't seduction, this was an alpha losing control of something sacred. Kyle pushed away from the wall and walked toward her again, slowly, cautiously, like approaching a frightened fawn, even though he himself was shaking. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough to feel the warmth of him, close enough for his scent, storm rain and cold pine, to curl around her, but he didn't touch her. He didn't dare. "Lyra," he said, voice low, trembling, "I will not claim a Voxer who doesn't understand the bond. I will not bind you to a destiny you didn't ask for, and I will certainly not demand anything from you you cannot give." Lyra swallowed hard. Then why did it hurt to hear that? "But," Kyle continued, taking a careful breath. I can't pretend I didn't feel your fear when the council threatened you, or the way my wolf reacted when you were taken from my sight, or the way I almost lost my mind when you walked into that chamber shaking. Lyra's eyes widened. Kyle, my wolf, he whispered, voice thick with a truth he could no longer contain, believes you were born for him. Silence. A deep, trembling silence. Lyra opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Kyle bowed his head, shattered and strong all at once. You don't have to say anything, he murmured. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until you understand what you truly are. He stepped back, just one step. But it felt like the world shifted. Rest, Lyra, please. His jaw tightened on the plea. I'll stand guard outside. Nothing will touch you. He turned away. Lyra's voice caught in her throat. She didn't know if it was fear, fate, or something dangerously close to longing. But the words left her before she could stop them. Kyle, don't go. He froze. Slowly, painfully. He turned his head. The look on his face, shock, hope, and something fiercely vulnerable, hit her harder than any magic. Lyra's chest ached. I don't want to sleep alone tonight. Kyle swallowed. You want me to stay? She nodded. He stepped forward, carefully, reverently, and sat beside the bed, back straight, posture rigid, as if any form of closeness might break him. Lyra lay down, her hand unconsciously drifting toward him until her fingers brushed his arm. Kyle inhaled sharply, but he didn't move away. He lowered his head and whispered, Moon, witness me. Lyra, one day you'll understand what you've done to me. His voice wasn't a threat, it was a confession, a vow, a surrender, and Lyra fell asleep with her fingers still lightly touching him, never noticing that Kyle didn't blink for the rest of the night, afraid that if he dared to close his eyes, fate would steal her away again. Chapter 6. The moon does not make mistakes, but alphas sometimes do. Dawn crept across the mountains in a thin ribbon of silver, but inside the healing chamber, time felt trapped, caught between one breath and the next. Kyle hadn't moved, not once. He sat on the stone floor beside Lyra's bed, back straight, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on the door as if willing his vigilance to be enough to keep threats from reaching her. Lyra woke slowly, softly. Her eyes blinked open, hazy from sleep, and the first thing she saw was Kyle, silent, unmoving. A storm held together only by the thin thread of control. For a moment she simply watched him. The exhaustion etched into his face, the tension locked in his jaw, the flicker of relief when he realized she was awake. He exhaled like he'd been drowning all night. You slept, she murmured. I didn't, he answered. She pushed herself up, rubbing her eyes. You should rest too. Kyle shook his head. I couldn't. Lyra frowned, her chest tightening. Because of the bond. Kyle's throat worked before he finally said, because of fear. She stared. Alphas didn't admit fear, not even to themselves. What were you afraid of? She whispered. Kyle didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, really looked at her, with a vulnerability so raw she almost stopped breathing. I was afraid that if I closed my eyes, he said softly, I'd wake up and find you gone. Lyra's heart twisted. Kyle, you don't need to say anything, he added quickly, as if trying to protect her from the weight of his confession. Your presence affects me, more than it should, more than I can control. He stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. The movement was too sharp, too sudden. A warning sign. Lyra swung her legs off the bed. Kyle, what's wrong? His shoulders rose and fell with uneven breaths. My wolf, he said, voice low. He's agitated, restless, too aware of you. Is that dangerous? Lyra asked quietly. For me, Kyle whispered. Yes. Lyra blinked. For you? Kyle turned, eyes glowing faintly gold. Do you know what it means? He asked, when an alpha's wolf recognizes someone as Voxer? Her breath caught. You said the Voxer is the heart voice, the one who anchors the alpha's spirit. Yes, Kyle said softly, but that's only the surface. He stepped closer, not too close, but enough that she felt the gravity of him tug at her. A Voxer is not chosen for comfort, he murmured. She is chosen when an alpha's soul is in danger of fracturing. Lyra froze. I don't understand. Kyle sat beside her on the edge of the bed, shoulders tense. My wolf, he exhaled shakily. He carries too much. Too many battles, too many losses, too much blood. Every year it gets harder for alphas to hold their wolves back when rage rises, harder to remain balanced, harder not to burn out. Lyra's hand hovered near his, uncertain. When an alpha is close to losing control, Kyle continued, the universe chooses a Voxer, a voice strong enough to anchor the wildness inside him, to keep him from destroying himself. Lyra's pulse quickened. And that's what I am to you. Kyle closed his eyes, jaw tightening. Yes, Lyra swayed, not because the bond frightened her, but because of what it meant. Her song hadn't just healed him in the forest, it had saved him. Kyle let out a shuddering breath. When you sang, he said quietly, my wolf stopped fighting death. For the first time in years he rested. Lyra's heart fluttered painfully. Kyle, I didn't know, you weren't meant to. He offered a faint, broken smile. Voxer are rare, sacred, lost to most stories. His smile faded. But you felt it, didn't you? He asked softly. That pull in your chest, that strange awareness of my breathing, that instinct that told you to run to me in the forest even though you were afraid. Lyra swallowed. Yes, I felt it. Kyle looked away. A muscle jumped in his jaw. The council hates what a Voxer bond represents, he muttered. Power they can't control. An alpha who doesn't need their guidance. A destiny they didn't choose. Lyra's stomach dropped. They want to separate us. Kyle nodded once, the movement sharp with contained fury. They'll try anything, even lies, even manipulation. Why? Lyra demanded. I'm not a threat. I'm not even part of your world. You're more dangerous to them than any warrior, Kyle said. Because you make me stronger. Lyra stared, not flattered, not overwhelmed, just struck deeply, fiercely by the truth in his voice. Kyle wasn't trying to charm her. He was telling her what terrified him. He stood again, pacing once more, though the storm in him felt different this time, less anger, more urgency. I need time, he said, time to prepare a path for you in the pack, time to convince the council you're not a weapon, time to understand what this bond means for both of us. Lyra nodded slowly. And what do you want from me? Silence. Kyle turned, and the way he looked at her felt like heat in winter, shocking, impossible, and deeply needed. I want you safe, he said. I want you protected. I want you heard. And I want you to have every choice your destiny takes from you. He took a step toward her. But what I want more than anything, he whispered, is to understand what this bond feels like for you. Because for me, it feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if you'll jump or walk away. Lyra's breath trembled. Kyle searched her eyes, slowly, carefully, as though memorizing her face in case she turned from him. Tell me what you feel, Lyra, he said softly. Not what you think you should feel. Not what you fear, just what your heart is doing right now. Lyra's pulse pounded against her ribs. Her throat tightened, but she managed to whisper, I feel pulled. Kyle inhaled sharply. pulled toward you, she continued, voice shaking. Even when I don't understand why, even when I'm afraid, even when part of me wants to run. Kyle closed his eyes. When he opened them, they glowed brighter. Your wolf, Lyra murmured. He feels this too? He felt you before I did, Kyle admitted. He knew your voice before your name. Lyra exhaled, dizzy. Kyle, what happens now? His answer was a vow wrapped in restraint. Now I build a world where you can stay, without fear, without pressure, and without losing yourself. Lyra's chest tightened. And me? She whispered. What do I do? Kyle stepped closer, close enough that she felt his breath, but he didn't touch her. He didn't dare. You, he murmured. Just breathe. That's enough for now. She swallowed hard. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, Kyle said softly. My world changes. Because you're in it. Lyra's heart stuttered. The bond pulsed between them, soft, electric, ancient, and neither of them moved. Not forward, not back, just closer in a way that felt inevitable. Like fate wasn't waiting anymore. Like destiny had already chosen the path, and all they had to do was walk it. Chapter 7, When Destiny Whispers, Even Alphas Listen. Morning light filtered into the chamber in thin threads, gold and quiet, as if even the sun feared disturbing the tension braided into the air. Kyle had left only minutes earlier, not because he wanted to, but because duty demanded it. Lyra could still feel the echo of him, warmth lingering in the air where he'd stood, the faint scent of storm pine woven into the stone walls, the memory of his voice saying breathe, as though he were giving her permission to exist. She wrapped her arms around herself. Everything inside her felt different now, pulled, stretched, awakened. The Voxer bond. A word she'd never heard until last night, yet now it lived under her skin like a second heartbeat. Footsteps approached, not Kyle's. These steps were sharper, colder, measured like steel. Lyra stiffened. A woman entered, tall, strong, clad in the markings of a high-ranking warrior. Her braided hair was laced with silver threads, and her eyes were the color of a winter river, calm on the surface, deadly beneath. Lyra rose instinctively. The woman bowed, just barely, respectful but not warm. I am Varin, she said, first blade of the Alpha King. Lyra blinked. You're his second in command. One of them, Varin replied. I train the warriors, I guard Kyle's back in battle, and I make sure threats never reach him. Lyra's stomach twisted. Threats? Varin's gaze swept her, keen, sharp, assessing. Not hostile, but not gentle either. You are not a threat, she said finally, but you are a turning point, and turning points must be evaluated. Lyra swallowed. Evaluated? For your safety, and for his. Varin stepped closer. When you sang in the forest, you did something impossible. You stabilized an Alpha's wolf when he was seconds from death. No human has ever done that. Lyra's voice shook. I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt something. That, Varin murmured, is precisely why the Council fears you. Lyra stiffened. Kel told me they'd try to get rid of me. Varin nodded. Not through violence, through pressure, isolation, manipulation. They don't need blades to break someone, Lyra. Lyra clenched her fists. I'm not here to cause trouble. I didn't choose this bond. Neither did Kyle, Varin said softly. But he accepts it, fiercely. Lyra looked down. Varin's voice gentled in a way Lyra didn't expect. You changed him. Lyra looked up, startled. I've known Kale since he was a boy, Varin continued. When he took the crown, he stopped softening. He stopped trusting. He stopped listening to anything but war and loss. She studied Lyra with more warmth than before. But last night, Lyra, he sat outside this door like someone guarding the last piece of hope he had. Lyra's breath caught. I don't know what you are meant to be in his world, Varin said. But I know this, Kael does not fear fate, yet he fears losing you. Lyra's chest tightened painfully. I didn't ask for this bond. I don't know how to be what he needs. Good, Varin smiled faintly. Voxa should not be shaped by fear or duty. Your role is not to serve him. Lyra blinked. It's not. No. Varin's eyes softened. Your role is simply to exist in truth. Do that, and his wolf will find balance. Lyra exhaled shakily. Varin stepped back. Kael will meet with the council within the hour, she said. They will question your presence. They will challenge his authority. And while he can handle all of that, you, Varin paused, must be prepared for the consequences. Lyra's pulse quickened. Consequences? You are now the one thing the council cannot predict or control. That makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability makes you powerful. Lyra shook her head. I'm not powerful. Varin gave her a long, steady look. You calmed a dying alpha with nothing but your voice, she said simply. Power does not announce itself. It reveals itself. Lyra didn't know what to say, but Varin wasn't finished. One more thing. She lowered her voice. Kael forbade the warriors from approaching you last night. You may not have realized, but that is unprecedented. Why? Lyra asked softly. Because Kael has never guarded someone with this level of intensity, not even his closest allies. Which means one of two things is true. Lyra swallowed. What are they? Either the Voxa bond is stronger than any the pack has documented. Varin paused. Or Kael feels something toward you beyond the bond. Lyra's breath caught. Varin straightened. You deserve to know what you're walking into, she said. If you stay in this world, everything will change. Your life, your future, your heart. And Kael's... Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. What if I'm not ready? For the first time, Varin smiled with real warmth. No one is ever ready for fate, she said. Not even alphas. A soft knock echoed from the doorframe. Both turned. Kael stood there. He looked different than he had in the quiet hours of dawn. Armor fitted across his broad shoulders, hair tied back, expression carved from determination and residual fear. But his eyes, they found Lyra instantly, and softened instantly. Varin bowed deeply. Alpha. Kael didn't acknowledge the bow. His gaze didn't leave Lyra. Lyra, he said quietly. I need to speak with you. Varin stepped aside and disappeared into the hall. Kael entered the chamber, closing the door behind him. Lyra's heart pounded. Are you all right? He asked, a simple question, asked with too much emotion. Yes, she said. Varin was kind. Kael nodded once. She is one of the few I trust with your safety. A pulse of heat fluttered in Lyra's chest. Kael exhaled. The council summoned me. They want an explanation for your presence, for the bond, for why my wolf refuses to calm unless you're near. Lyra looked away. I don't want to cause trouble for you. You aren't, Kael said instantly. They are the trouble, not you. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, but not fearfully. We'll handle the council, he said. But before I go, his voice dropped to something raw. I need something from you. Lyra froze. What is it? Kael's eyes softened, wild gold dimming into something almost gentle. Honesty, he whispered. I need to know if yesterday scared you away from me. Lyra's throat tightened. Her hands trembled. She opened her mouth. But Kael lifted a hand, stopping her gently. Think before you answer, he said softly. Not for me, For you." Lyra breathed in slowly. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but certain. "I'm afraid," she admitted, "of everything I don't understand, of what this means, of how much it matters." Kyle's gaze darkened with emotion. "But," Lyra continued, swallowing hard, "I'm not afraid of you." Kyle closed his eyes, just for a moment. Relief crashed through him so strongly she felt it in the room like a shift in the air. When he opened his eyes again, there was something new in them: determination, protection, and a vow he hadn't spoken out loud yet. "Then I'll face the council," he murmured, "and when I return, we'll decide what your place here should be." Lyra nodded. Kyle took one step backward, then paused. "Lyra? Yes?" His voice dropped lower, softer than she'd ever heard it. "Don't leave this room unless Varen is with you." Lyra blinked. "Do you think someone will—" "Yes," Kyle said simply. "They will try something, and they will fail." He held her gaze a beat longer, as if imprinting her into memory. Then he turned and left to face a council terrified of the girl whose voice had brought an Alpha-King back from the edge of death. Chapter 8. The Night the Moons Listened. The forest felt different that night, as if the shadows had stepped back so the moonlight could fall only on them. Liriana stood at the edge of the ridge, her breath steady but her heartbeat wild. The air tasted storm-heavy, charged with the tension she could feel against her skin. Not danger, awakening. And behind her, she felt him. Kyle, Alpha-born, fate-marked, the wolf who should have died under the crushing wounds of battle, yet survived only because she sang for him. He approached slowly, as though afraid to break the fragile quiet settling around them. "Liriana," he said, and the way her name fell from his voice made her knees weaken. "Look at me." She did, and the world stilled. His eyes glowed with that molten silver that only surfaced when his emotions slipped free of his iron control. But this time they weren't fierce. They were soft, achingly soft, the soft of someone who had been lost his entire life, and suddenly found something he didn't know was missing. "Your voice." His throat worked as if the words hurt. "It shouldn't be possible, but I feel it under my skin, even when you're silent, even when you're far." Liriana pressed her hands together, trying to still their trembling. "It's just a gift," she whispered. "Nothing more. It's not just anything." Kyle stepped closer. "Liriana, when you sang for me, I didn't just come back from the edge. I came home." Her breath caught. No Alpha spoke that way, not to anyone. He was breaking every rule of power, lineage, and restraint just by admitting that much. It was enough to make the earth sway beneath her feet. But he wasn't done. Kyle lifted a hand tentatively, as if asking permission, and Liriana didn't move. Not away, not closer, only breathing in the moment like a fragile shard of destiny. His fingertips brushed her cheek, a soft touch, barely there. But it felt like lightning kissed her skin, not painful, awakening. "Your voice heals," he murmured, "but it also binds. I felt it in the bone-deep way wolves feel destiny." Liriana swallowed hard. "Kyle." "No." His voice broke, rough with a truth he'd held back too long. "I need you to understand." He stepped even closer, close enough that his breath warmed her forehead, close enough that she could see the trembling in his jaw, the war between restraint and longing. "When you sang," Kyle whispered, "I didn't feel my pack. I didn't feel the moon. I didn't feel the traditions that chained my life since birth. I felt you, only you." Liriana's heart thundered. Her voice shook in her chest, not with fear but with a terrifying joy she'd tried not to hope for. "Kyle." she breathed. If you say this, everything changes. Yes. His silver eyes deepened, and for the first time, I'm not afraid of change. A soft wind swept across the ridge, carrying the scent of pine and moonlit frost. It curled around them like a blessing, quiet, steady, ancient. Liriana, he murmured, I don't want you to sing for me because you saved my life. He leaned closer, voice barely above breath. I want you to sing because you're becoming my life. Her chest tightened sharply. Destiny did not feel like thunder or prophecy. It felt like warmth, like breath, like finally belonging somewhere after a lifetime of drifting. Kyle reached for her hands. His touch was careful, alpha strength carefully gentled, grounding rather than overwhelming. Let me stay, he whispered. Not as your alpha, not as a wolf saved by your song, as someone who finally found where he wants to rest. I'm not a place, she whispered back, though her voice trembled. I'm just me. That's enough, he said, voice raw. More than enough. The moment stretched, pure, breathless, suspended like a final note that refused to fade. But Liriana, soft as her voice was, had her own truths to speak. Kyle, she whispered, if you stay, I need you to know something. He stilled, waiting. My voice works because of emotion, connection, meaning. And when you were dying, I could sing because... Her voice cracked. His hands tightened around hers as if he felt that break in his own ribs. Because I couldn't bear losing you, she finished. Not even though I barely knew you. Kyle closed his eyes, pain and relief crashing across his face. When he opened them, the silver glow was fierce, not with power, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. Liriana, he breathed. That's all I needed. She exhaled shakily. The tension softened into something tender, something fragile but powerful, something new. The moons brightened above them, their pale light brushing over the two figures standing close enough for their breaths to mix. And then, from the forest below, a howl rose, low, echoing, urgent. Kyle's head lifted sharply. Alpha instincts surged through him like a blade drawn. Liriana stepped back, worry flickering in her eyes. What is it? Kyle's expression hardened. Trouble. But not normal trouble. That howl, it means something ancient is stirring, something dangerous, something old enough that danger is the least of the problems. Liriana felt the air pulse, not with fear, but with the sense that the story of her voice was no longer hers alone. Kyle turned to her, jaw tight. We're not done here, he said softly, but the forest is calling. I have to answer. Liriana nodded, steadying herself. I know. But just as he turned to go, she reached out and caught his wrist. He froze. Kyle, she whispered, come back to me. His breath hitched. He leaned his forehead softly against hers. Not a kiss, not crossing any line, just the quietest promise a wolf could give. I will, he vowed, because your voice is the only home I've ever wanted to return to. Then he slipped into the trees, silver eyes fading into the night. Liriana stood alone on the ridge, her heart shaking, not with fear, but with the knowledge that destiny had finally opened its door, and something was waiting behind it. Chapter 9. When the forest chose its heir. The howl that shattered the night didn't fade, it multiplied. One voice became 3. 3 became 7. 7 became an echoing chorus rising from every ridge, every shadowed valley, every ancient den that had slept silent for generations. Liriana felt the vibrations beneath her boots. It wasn't fear, it was the earth awakening, something old, something sacred, something that did not wake unless destiny burned bright enough to shake the bones of the world. Her breath tightened, but she did not run. She wrapped her cloak tighter and descended from the ridge, her mind anchored to one truth. Kyle was out there, and he needed her voice more than anyone realized. Kyle ran like the wind was chasing him. The forest blurred around him, massive pines whipping past, their branches trembling as if sensing the shift in the world. His wolf form surged beneath his skin, begging to break free, but he held it back. Not yet. He needed his mind clear. The howl wasn't from enemies. It was from the elder-tide wolves, creatures older than packs, older than alpha lines, wolves who answered only to the forest's ancient pulse. They shouldn't be awake, not unless a new power had entered the world, a power capable of rewriting fate, a power like her. Kyle's chest tightened so hard it nearly stole his breath. When he reached the clearing, he froze. 7 elder-tide wolves stood in a ring, massive bodies formed of shadow and starlight, their eyes glowing with ancient memory. They were neither alive nor spirit, but something in between. Their power shimmered in the air, bending it like heat. The largest of them, taller than any living wolf, stepped forward. Its voice brushed through Kyle's mind like a cold wind. Alpha! Kyle dropped to one knee without hesitation, not out of fear, out of respect. "Why have you risen?" he asked. The ancient wolf tilted its head, its form flickering like moonlight on broken water. A voice has awakened. Kyle's breath stilled. Liriana. Her song touched the boundary between life and death, the wolf continued. Only the marked can do this. She isn't marked, Kyle said sharply. She's a healer, that's all. But the elder-tide wolf stepped closer, its starlit eyes burning into him. You do not understand. Its next words shook the ground. She carries the first melody. The world froze. Kyle felt his heartbeat stop, literally stop, before slamming back into his chest. The first melody. Impossible. That was a myth only elders whispered about, a legend older than packs themselves. The first melody belonged to the original songkeepers, humans whose voices shaped nature before wolves took their first breath. That line died out centuries ago, Kyle forced out. The wolf's voice deepened. No, it hid, and now it has chosen a vessel. Kyle surged to his feet. No, he growled, shaking with sudden fury. You are not taking her. The wolves didn't bare their teeth. They didn't growl. They didn't need to. The air itself trembled as if holding its breath. Alpha, the elder-tide wolf said calmly. We are not here to take her. A beat, a pause as heavy as prophecy. We are here to protect her. Kyle blinked, thrown off balance. Protect her? From who? The answer made the forest grow silent. From the one who hunts the melody, Kyle's stomach dropped. Who? The wolf stepped closer, its form shadowing the clearing. The dread-born king. The air itself seemed to freeze around the name. Kyle's jaw clenched, his voice turned to steel. That tyrant is dead. A king does not die when his hatred outlives his body. Kyle's breath caught. The dread-born king seeks rebirth, the wolf continued, and he needs the melody to do so. If he finds her, the world will kneel in chains and silence. Kyle's blood went cold. Liriana wasn't just special. She was a target for an ancient threat that didn't stay buried. He turned toward the direction he came from. Then I need to reach her now. But the elder-tide wolf blocked his path. Kyle bared his teeth, instincts roaring. Move! The wolf's eyes shimmered with calm inevitability. You do not protect her with speed. Then how? The ancient wolf lowered its head, power radiating like a heartbeat of the earth. You protect her with your bond. Kyle stilled. The melody awakens only for its chosen counterpart. Liriana's voice, his pull to her, the way fate felt like it tightened around them with every breath. No, he couldn't believe this. He wouldn't. "I won't bind her to something she didn't choose," he said, voice trembling with a rare vulnerability. The elder-tide wolf gave a sound like an ancient exhale. "You misunderstand." Its next words turned Kyle's bones to fire and ice. "She has already chosen you." Kyle's breath left him. All at once, the memories rushed back. Her trembling confession on the ridge, the way her voice softened when she said she couldn't bear losing him, the way her touch found his wrist as if her heart moved before her mind. "Liriana," he whispered. "Go," the wolf said, "before the Dreadborn reaches your world." Kyle shifted, not slowly, not hesitantly. His wolf tore free in a flash of silver and shadow, and he ran harder, faster, more desperately than he had ever run in his life. Liriana was already in danger. She didn't know it. Not yet. But as she made her way through the forest, her lantern flickered, the air grew colder, and a strange whisper slid through the trees like a voice from a forgotten grave. A whisper calling her name. She stopped, her heart pounding. The forest suddenly felt wrong, empty, dead. Her breath fogged before her, even though it wasn't cold enough for frost. She took a slow step backward. Something stepped into the path ahead, something tall, shadowed, dripping with a darkness that moved like smoke. Its eyes glowed with sickly gold. Liriana didn't know what it was, but her soul recognized it instinctively, the hunter, her hunter, the Dreadborn King's reborn shade. "Hello, little Melody," it whispered. Liriana's hand flew to her throat, terror squeezing her breath, but then, from behind her, a roar shook the forest, a wolf's roar, fierce, possessive, shaking heaven and earth. Kyle burst into the clearing in his full alpha form, silver fire blazing in his eyes, and the ancient shadow turned toward him slowly, smiling. Chapter 10. The Song That Defied Shadows. Kyle didn't remember shifting. One heartbeat he was a blur of silver fur tearing through the forest. The next he was already between Liriana and the creature, teeth bared, his massive frame crouched protectively in front of her. A sound tore from him, a low, rumbling snarl that made the earth tremble. Liriana staggered back, breath shaking, her fingers clutching her lantern as though it could anchor her. Her heartbeat was wild, but her voice, her greatest strength, felt trapped in her chest. The shadowed figure tilted its head as if amused. So, the Alpha arrives. Its voice slithered like cold oil, thick and suffocating. Kyle advanced a step, placing himself fully between Liriana and the threat. He didn't growl anymore. He radiated a lethal, silent fury. The kind that meant he would tear the world apart to keep her safe. The shadow chuckled softly. "You cannot stop what has already begun." Kyle lunged. A flash of silver and fury shot forward. But the creature dissolved into smoke, reforming behind them. Liriana gasped. Kyle spun instantly, placing himself in front of her again with impossible speed. The creature's eyes gleamed with sickly gold. "You guard the Melody as though she is yours." Kyle's growl deepened into something visceral enough to shake the branches overhead. The creature smiled like cracking glass. "But she does not belong to you." Liriana's fear flickered, not for herself, but for Kyle. Kyle didn't look back at her, but she felt the tension rip through him, the way his body coiled, the way his breath shook with contained rage. But then, the shadow's gaze slid past Kyle and landed on her. "Come, girl," a whisper, dead and dangerous. "The world sang you into being for me." Liriana swallowed hard, stepping back, tears burning her eyes. Kyle roared so violently the trees shook. The shadow only laughed. Liriana's voice trembled at the edge of her throat. She had never felt so afraid, not even when Kyle had been dying beneath her hands. This fear was different. It felt like someone reaching inside her chest and trying to take what wasn't theirs. The creature lifted a hand, fingers made of swirling darkness. The first melody must return to its rightful master. Liriana shook her head. Hard. No, she whispered. The creature paused, amused. No. Her legs trembled. She could barely breathe, but her voice, the thing she thought was weakest, rose anyway. No, she said again, louder. My voice is mine. The creature leaned forward. It is older than you. Kyle turned his head slightly, a subtle pleading gesture, as if begging her not to step closer, but Liriana didn't step closer. She stepped beside Kyle, right at his shoulder. Their arms brushed. Kyle's breath hitched. Barely. But she heard it. She felt it. Something in him steadied the moment she touched him. The creature's smile slipped. You dare stand with him? Liriana swallowed her fear. She met the creature's golden eyes, her voice steadying. I do. The creature's mask of shadow cracked. Something cold and furious leaked out. Then you have chosen your fate. It lifted its hand, and darkness swirled, condensing into a shape that pulsed like a dying star. Kyle snarled and surged forward. But the creature flung the darkness with a sharp, violent flick. It streaked toward Liriana, fast, too fast. Kyle threw himself in front of her. The blast hit him square in the chest. Liriana screamed his name. Kyle staggered, slammed back into her, and collapsed to one knee, his breath hitched, body trembling violently. Smoke rose from his skin like burning frost. Kyle, Kale, Kale, he tried to rise, failed. Liriana dropped beside him, hands shaking as she touched his face. His eyes flickered, unfocused. Liriana, run. No, she cried, holding his face in both hands. I won't. The creature watched, head tilted, almost pleased. You see, girl? Its voice oozed satisfaction. He weakens you. Liriana's chest tightened. Her throat burned. But something inside her, something deeper than fear, snapped free. She rose slowly. The forest fell silent. The wind died. Even the shadows hesitated. Her voice, the one she thought she barely understood, pulsed against her ribs. And Liriana realized something. Her voice wasn't reacting to fear. It was reacting to him, Kyle, the wolf who kneels only to destiny, yet knelt now on trembling knees because he shielded her with his body. Her voice didn't awaken from tragedy. It awakened from love, pure, undeniable, terrifying. Her heart pounded, her lungs expanded, and Liriana sang. Her song wasn't loud. It was soft, barely more than breath, a single aching note that trembled like moonlight on water, but the effect was instant. The trees straightened, the air pulsed, the shadows recoiled, the creature's head snapped up. No! The song deepened, wrapping around Kyle like a warm, glowing thread. His gasping breath steadied, his shaking stilled, his eyes opened, silver blazing brighter than she had ever seen. Liriana's voice rose higher, stronger, purified by emotion she could no longer pretend she didn't feel. The shadows staggered back as though struck. Impossible. The melody obeys only. The melody obeys my heart, Liriana whispered between notes. And my heart answered him. Kyle's breath caught, not because he was in pain, but because her words hit deeper than any wound. The creature screeched, its form unraveling. Darkness peeled like burning paper. You cannot sever destiny, it shrieked. Liriana stepped forward, voice turning fierce, shining. I'm not severing destiny, She lifted her chin. I'm choosing it. Her song burst into brilliant force, and the creature exploded into smoke and ash. Silence crashed over the clearing. Liriana collapsed to her knees, exhausted, trembling. Kyle crawled to her instantly, still weakened but filled with raw desperation. He cupped her face with shaking hands. Liriana, Liriana, look at me. She lifted her eyes. His gaze burned, not with alpha power, not with dominance, not with fury, with something far more dangerous, devotion. She breathed his name softly. Kyle. His forehead pressed to hers, breaths mixing, voices trembling, hearts thundering. You chose me, he whispered, voice breaking. She closed her eyes. I did. And the forest, the ancient breathing forest, shuddered as though accepting that truth into its roots. Chapter 11, where wolves kneel and hearts answer. The creature's ashes drifted into the wind like dead snow. The forest slowly remembered how to breathe. Birds whispered, leaves rustled. The world exhaled softly, as though relieved its pulse was still intact. But Kyle didn't look away from Liriana. Not for a heartbeat, not for a breath, not for anything. His hands still cradled her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks, as if he needed the physical proof she was alive. She leaned into his touch, trembling with exhaustion, adrenaline, and something else, something deeper, something warmer, something terrifying in its clarity. Kyle swallowed hard. Liriana, he whispered, tell me you're not hurt. I'm not, she breathed. You took the hit for me, and I'd take 1,000 more. His voice shook. I'd take every blow the world has... She closed her eyes, overwhelmed, but Kyle wasn't finished. He leaned closer, forehead pressing to hers again, as if pulling strength from the simple act of touching her. His voice was low, husky, almost breaking. You said you chose me. She opened her eyes. Silver fire burned in his. Did you mean it? He asked. No command. No alpha authority, just raw vulnerability. Liriana's breath trembled. Kale, she whispered, I didn't just choose you in the clearing. He froze. I chose you the moment I heard your heartbeat under my hands. Kyle inhaled sharply, as though the world opened beneath him. Her next words were barely a whisper. And when you almost died again today, I realized, I don't just want you safe. I want you here. Kyle's chest rose in a shudder, his fingers tightening around her. Liriana, his voice cracked. For a wolf, a born alpha, to let any sound break like that, it meant everything. He lowered his hands from her face, only to pull her gently against him. Not forceful, not claiming, just an embrace that felt like falling into a place she had belonged to her entire life. Liriana melted into him, her hands gripping the fabric at his shoulders. Kyle's voice trembled against her hair. You have no idea what you've done to me. She let out a small, breathless laugh. I think I do. He leaned back just enough to look at her, their faces inches apart. His breath brushed her lips, warm, shaking, reverent. I tried to resist this, he murmured. I tried to stay away, to be noble, to give you space. I tried to pretend the bond wasn't calling me like a second heartbeat. His thumb brushed her jaw, slow, gentle. It didn't work. Her pulse raced. Kale, I'm not asking for a vow, he said. I'm not asking for forever. I'm asking for right now. Liriana's heart softened, melted, reshaped itself into something new. And right now? She whispered. His eyes darkened, the silver glowing like moonlit embers. Right now, I need you to know I'm yours. Her breath hitched. Kale. He swallowed hard. And if the world doesn't like it, then the world can kneel. Liriana's cheeks burned with emotion, her chest aching with something so powerful she could barely breathe. She lifted a trembling hand and touched his face, the first time she had initiated the contact. Kyle inhaled sharply, his eyes fluttering shut, as if her touch was everything he had ever wanted and feared. Her thumb brushed his cheek. "And I'm not asking for forever either," she whispered. "I just want this." Kyle opened his eyes, silver, fierce, soft. "Then take it," he breathed. Their foreheads pressed together again, breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat. Not a kiss, not crossing the line, just a moment so intimate it felt like the forest bowed around them, a promise sealed in silence. But the moment didn't last. The wind shifted. A deep growl rumbled through the ground. Not from danger, from ceremony, from reverence. Kyle stiffened, turning his head slightly. Liriana followed his gaze and gasped. Wolves, dozens, no, hundreds, every alpha of every regional pack, every beta, every scout, all kneeling, all facing her. Liriana's knees wobbled. What? Why? What are they doing? Kyle rose slowly, helping her to her feet. His voice dropped low. "They felt your song, my song." Kyle nodded once, eyes never leaving the sight before them. "They felt you destroy the dreadborn shade. They felt the first melody awaken. They felt the forest accept you." Liriana shook her head, breath quickening. "I didn't mean to awaken anything." But Kyle stepped in front of her, still holding her hand, grounding her. "You didn't awaken it," he said softly. "It awakened for you." A ripple passed through the packs. Then, as one living ocean of fur and power, they bowed lower. Kyle's voice turned reverent. "Liriana," he whispered, "the wolves aren't kneeling to fear." His thumb brushed the back of her shaking hand. "They're kneeling to you." Her voice trembled. "I'm just a girl with a strange voice." "No." He turned her gently to face him. "You're the one who healed me when I was dying. You're the one who sang against the impossible. You're the one the forest chose." His hand lifted, not touching her cheek, but hovering close enough to ask a silent question. "You're the melody," he whispered. "My melody." Liriana's breath caught. The wolves bowed deeper. The moon brightened, and Kyle's eyes held hers like nothing in the world could pull him away. "Liriana," he whispered, voice trembling with a truth he could no longer hide. "Let me stand at your side, not because destiny demands it, but because I do." Chapter 11. The Breaking Point. The storm had not stopped since the night Evelyn shattered the curse with her blood. Thunder rolled across the sky like an old god dragging chains, shaking the fortress walls. The wind crashed against the windows with a fury that felt almost personal. Inside the Alpha Hall, everything felt too still. Evelyn stood in the center of the great chamber, chest rising and falling, hands trembling, even though she tried to hide it. Her magic still pulsed faintly beneath her skin, an echo of the power she had unleashed to save Adrian only hours ago. Adrian watched her from a short distance, shoulders tense, a muscle ticking in his jaw. Not with anger, with fear, fear for her, fear of loss, fear of what he now knew was coming. "You should be resting." His voice was rough, stretched thin. "Your body took the force of an ancient bond snapping. You can barely stand." She managed a weak smirk. "You're one to talk. You nearly died in my arms." He inhaled sharply, more at the memory than the words. The moment she had collapsed on top of him, magic burning through both their veins, her blood on his skin, her breath faltering. He hadn't realized until then how much of his spirit was tangled with hers. "Evelyn," he stepped toward her, but she stepped back. That one movement hit him harder than any blade could. "Don't," she whispered, his brows knit. "Don't what? Don't look at me like that. Like I'm fragile. Like I'm something you need to protect from the world. You are something I need to protect," he said, voice lowered, controlled only by sheer will. "That's not weakness. That's reality." Her throat tightened. "But what if protecting me means losing everything you fought for? Your people, your throne, your destiny." He exhaled slowly. "I would trade every crown carved in the bones of kings if it meant you lived." Her eyes glistened. She didn't want those words. Because she believed him, and because believing him made everything worse. The oracle's warning replayed in her mind. To break the curse, one must bleed. To survive its aftermath, one must choose what they cannot bear to lose. Evelyn felt her heartbeat stumble. "Adrian," she swallowed. The oracle came to me again. In my dreams, his entire body stilled. What did she say? That the curse didn't fully die. It changed. Silence struck the room like lightning. Changed how? His voice fell to a whisper, but it sounded more dangerous than any shout. Evelyn hesitated, then forced the words out. She said the bond between us is now unstable, that your life force is tied to mine until we complete the ancient rite, and if we don't— Adrian moved instantly, closing the distance and gripping her shoulders with both hands. "Finish that sentence," he breathed. "Your heart will stop when mine does." Thunder cracked outside. His grip tightened, not hurting her, just grounding himself. "Evelyn," he said softly, "look at me." She looked, and it destroyed him. Her eyes held fear, not for herself, but for him. "It means," she whispered, "if anything happens to me, you die." For a moment he didn't breathe. Then he shook his head once, a sharp, violent refusal. "No, I refuse." His voice held steel. "We can complete the rite. We can stabilize the bond. We have a path." "Adrian, the rite requires a sacrifice. I don't care. You don't even know what the price is." "I don't care," he repeated, louder, voice breaking. "There is no price I won't pay." She stepped closer this time, lifting her hand to cup his cheek. His eyes closed as if the touch alone brought him to his knees. "Adrian," she whispered, voice trembling, "what if the price is you losing this kingdom, losing your people, losing the one thing you fought your entire life to protect?" He opened his eyes. Those storm-grey irises burned, not with anger but with something deeper, older, unyielding. "I have fought my entire life," he said slowly, "for a future I don't have to face alone." Her breath faltered. He took her hand gently and pressed it against his chest, over his heartbeat, strong, steady, and entirely hers. "This kingdom needs a ruler with a soul," he whispered. "You gave me mine back." She blinked hard as tears welled. He leaned his forehead against hers. "You are not my burden," he breathed. "You are the reason I can still breathe." Her lips parted in a soundless exhale. "Adrian, I'm not losing you." His voice dropped lower, not to magic, not to destiny, not to any curse. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Let me carry this with you," he whispered. "Let me choose you. Every time." Her voice barely came out. "Even if choosing me destroys everything else." He didn't hesitate. "I would burn down every prophecy ever written on stone." His forehead pressed harder to hers. "If it meant I got to protect the one woman fate should never have touched." A soft, shattered laugh escaped her. She leaned into him, eyes closing, letting herself breathe against his chest. For a moment, the storm outside didn't matter. For a moment, destiny felt like something they could fight, together. But then, a sudden sharp flare of pain lanced through Evelyn's ribs. She gasped, collapsing to one knee. "Evelyn!" Adrian dropped with her instantly, holding her upright. Her magic sparked wildly beneath her skin, out of control, flickering like dying embers. "No, no, stay with me, look at me." His voice shook. The bond pulsed violently between them. She coughed, grabbing his arm, eyes wide with terror. "Adrian, something's wrong." He lifted her into his arms in one swift movement, voice turning cold and lethal. "Hold on to me. I've got you." Her body trembled against him. "Don't let go," she whispered. "I won't." His grip tightened. "I swear it on my throne, on my blood, on my life." But the storm roared louder, and somewhere deep inside her chest, the unstable bond began to crack. Destiny had not finished with them. Not yet, not even close. Chapter 12. The Right of Hearts. Evelyn drifted in and out of consciousness as Adrian carried her through the storm-lit corridors of the fortress. Her head rested against his chest, the unsteady beat of her magic vibrating along their shared bond. She could feel it. The breaking. The fracture inside her body that didn't belong to her alone anymore. "Stay awake," Adrian whispered fiercely, brushing damp strands of hair from her cheek. "Evelyn, don't fade. I'm right here." She clung weakly to the fabric of his shirt, eyes half opening. "I'm trying." "Good. Hold on to me." His voice softened just barely, as though he feared that speaking too loudly could shatter her entirely. By the time they reached the ancient chamber beneath the fortress, the place where the rite could be performed, Evelyn's breathing had grown shallow. Adrian set her gently on the stone dais, his hands trembling for the first time since she had known him. The elders were already waiting, summoned by Adrian the instant she collapsed. Elder Mara stepped forward, her silver robes billowing in the shifting torchlight. "She's destabilizing," she said gravely. "The bond between you is pulling her magic in two directions. If we don't complete the rite now, both of you will break." Adrian turned sharply. "Tell me what to do." Mara hesitated. He noticed, and his gaze darkened. "What do I do?" The elder exhaled slowly. "The Right of Hearts requires a voluntary merging of life forces," she said. "But it is not a simple exchange. You cannot half-commit. You cannot hesitate. You cannot doubt." Her eyes settled on Adrian. "To stabilize the bond, you must give her a piece of your soul." Silence fell like a blade. Evelyn's breath caught, even in her weakened state. "A piece of his soul," she whispered, voice trembling. Mara nodded once. "A bond like yours is older than curses and deeper than prophecy. To mend what has been cracked, it needs something pure, something eternal, something willing." Adrian didn't blink, didn't falter. "I'll give her all of it if I have to." Evelyn's eyes flew open wider. "No," she rasped, reaching for his hand. "Adrian, you can't." "I can," he said softly. "And I will." "You could lose your humanity," she whispered. "Your ability to feel, to love." He kneeled beside her, taking her shaking hand in both of his. "If losing a part of myself means keeping you alive." His voice wavered with emotion he rarely allowed anyone to hear. "Then it's a price I'll pay every lifetime." Her throat tightened painfully. "Don't say things like that," she whispered. "Don't make it so easy to fall." He leaned closer, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'm not letting you go," he breathed. Her eyes fluttered closed as another wave of pain rolled through her. Mara raised her staff. "The rite must begin. Now." The stone beneath Evelyn began to glow with soft, pulsing light, echoing the frantic rhythm of her heart. Adrian moved to stand beside her, rolling up his sleeve as Mara passed him a ceremonial blade etched with ancient runes. Evelyn tried to lift herself, panic rising. "Adrian," but he caught her hand again, steady, warm, grounding. "Look at me," she did, and for a moment, the storm, the pain, the prophecy, none of it mattered. "It's going to be all right," he whispered. "Adrian." He lifted the blade. "I choose you." With one swift, sure motion, he pressed the blade to his forearm, blood spilling onto the glowing stone. The runes blazed to life. Evelyn gasped as power surged between them, raw, bright, ancient. Her magic reached for his like a dying ember gasping for breath. Mara stepped back as the chamber shook. "Adrian!" Evelyn cried as the magic flared, but he didn't move from her side. "I'm here," he said, voice breaking. "I'm not going anywhere." A blinding pulse of light exploded from the circle, wrapping them both in a cocoon of shimmering gold. Evelyn felt it, his soul, warm and fierce and steady, touching hers, filling the cracks, sealing the wounds, weaving itself through every fragile piece of her. Her breath hitched. Adrian felt her fear, her confusion, her longing, and he sent back only one thing: stay. Her tears fell freely, and then the light finally dimmed. Evelyn collapsed against him, exhausted but breathing evenly for the first time since the bond had cracked. Her magic felt whole, steady, alive. Adrian exhaled shakily, his forehead resting against her hair. Mara approached slowly. "The rite is complete," she announced softly. "The bond is stable now. You are tied to one another, in ways that even time cannot undo." Evelyn blinked up at him through tears. "You gave me too much." He brushed her cheek with the back of his fingers. "You gave me back more." She let out a shaking breath, leaning into his touch. "Adrian, yes? I didn't think I could survive this." He smiled, small, tired, achingly soft. "You didn't have to," he whispered. "You only had to let me stand with you." Her chest tightened with something deep, indescribable. Something like love, something like destiny, something neither of them could walk away from now, even if they tried. Outside, the storm finally began to break, and inside the chamber, for the first time since fate tore their lives apart, Evelyn felt hope, real, steady, undeniable hope. Adrian pulled her gently into his arms. "We're almost done," he murmured. "Just one more chapter left." She nodded weakly, resting her head against his shoulder. Then, "Let's finish it together," and he held her tighter. "As we were always meant to," Chapter 13, where destiny finally answers. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn woke without pain. No splitting magic tearing her apart, no echo of a curse gnawing at her veins, no shadow clinging to her breath, just warmth, a steady heartbeat thrum beneath her cheek. Her eyes flew open. Adrian. He hadn't moved from her side all night. He sat against the stone wall of the healing chamber, head slightly bowed, as if he'd been keeping watch even in sleep. His arm was around her shoulders, her head resting against him like it belonged there. Maybe it did. Evelyn slowly lifted her hand. Her fingers brushed his wrist, where his pulse beat a steady and reassuring rhythm. He stirred instantly. "Hey," he murmured, voice rough from exhaustion, but soft in a way it never used to be. "You're awake." Her voice trembled. "I feel whole." A relieved exhale slipped from him, nearly a laugh, nearly a sob. "Good, that's good." She pushed herself up slowly, turning toward him fully, and suddenly she saw it, the faint glowing mark on his arm, the one that hadn't been there before the rite, her mark, on him. She blinked, touching his arm gently. "That's permanent," he finished quietly. Her breath caught. "You didn't tell me. I didn't want you to worry. That's not fair," she whispered. He tipped his head, eyes searching hers. "You were dying," he said softly. "I wasn't going to burden you with the cost." Her throat tightened at the memory. "How much did it take from you?" He hesitated. Evelyn lifted his chin so she could meet his eyes. "Adrian," he exhaled slowly. "Enough." Her heart squeezed painfully. "Does it hurt?" "No," he said, then paused. "Not in a way that matters." Evelyn lowered her hand, staring at the glowing sigil, a mirror of the one on her own skin. You gave me a piece of yourself." "I did. And now you're marked." "I am." The weight of it crashed into her. "You can't undo this," she whispered. "I don't want to." Silence thickened around them, charged, trembling, full to its edges with something sharp and soft and terrifyingly real. "Adrian." She swallowed. "I don't know what to do with this." "You don't have to do anything," he said gently. "Just breathe. Just be here." But she shook her head. "No, you don't understand." He went still. Evelyn reached out and took his hand, really took it, fingers threading through his. Adrian inhaled sharply. "I didn't ask for this bond," she said softly. "I didn't ask for the prophecy or the right or any of it." His jaw clenched, hurt flickering in his eyes. "But," she whispered quickly, tightening her grip, "I'm done running from what I feel." His breath stuttered. "I'm done pretending I don't look for you everywhere." Adrian blinked, slowly disbelieving. "I'm done pretending I don't feel safer in your arms than anywhere else." His hand trembled in hers. "Evelyn." "And I'm done pretending," she whispered, voice barely a breath, "that I don't want you to stay." For the first time since she had met him, the mighty guardian, the feared warrior, the steady storm. Adrian looked undone. "Say it again," he whispered hoarsely. She leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching his. "I want you to stay." Something inside him broke open. His breath left him in a shaky exhale. "I will," he breathed. "Anywhere you are, I will." The bond pulsed between them, soft, warm, alive. But before the moment could settle, a knock sounded at the chamber door. Elder Mara stepped in, her expression unreadable. "It's time," she said. "The council is waiting." Evelyn felt Adrian stiffen beside her. "For what?" Evelyn asked. Mara gestured to them both. "For the final decree. The bond is no longer a private matter. The rite changed more than your fates. It changed ours. The council must decide how the new balance of power will shape the realm." Evelyn's stomach twisted. Adrian rose, offering her his hand. "We face them together," he said. She took his hand without hesitation. They walked out of the chamber and into the grand hall, a vast dome of crystalline stone filled with council members, warriors, seers and emissaries from every corner of the realm. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The bonded pair, the girl who survived the fracture, the warrior who gave part of his soul. At the center of the hall, Elder Mara raised her staff. "Evelyn Asteris," she called, and Adrian Valkyrin. "Step forward." They did, side by side, hand in hand. Mara's gaze softened, just slightly. "You stand before us today not as separate forces, but as a single bond, a bond that healed what ancient curses sought to destroy." A murmur of awe moved through the hall. Mara continued, "We must decide your place now, your role in the balance of fate." Adrian's jaw tightened. "What are the options?" he asked. Mara lifted a parchment. 1. The bond is recognized formally. You two remain united, your powers intertwined, acting as the realm's shield and song. Evelyn's pulse quickened. 2. The bond is constrained. forbidden from deepening further, regulated by the Council to prevent misuse of such unprecedented power. Adrian's eyes darkened. 3. The bond is severed. No, Adrian snapped instantly, but Evelyn's knees nearly buckled, severed, broken, torn apart. She felt Adrian's hand tighten around hers, protective, fierce, instinctive. Mara raised a hand. Hear the full decree, warrior. Adrian said nothing, but his chest rose and fell with barely controlled fury, and both lives would be preserved, Mara finished quietly. Evelyn swallowed hard. And 4, Adrian demanded. Mara's eyes held theirs with rare gentleness. 4, you accept your fate, together, without restraint, without fear, without council oversight. The bond becomes fully realized, and you step into a destiny larger than either of you alone. A shiver ran through Evelyn's body. The entire hall waited. Evelyn looked up at Adrian. Adrian looked only at her. You choose, he said softly. No throne, no council, no prophecy matters more than what you want. Her heart ached at the intensity of him, at the way he always centered her, even when it cost him everything. She squeezed his hand, lifted her chin, turned to the council. I choose, she said clearly. The hall leaned in. Adrian held his breath. I choose option 4. A rippling wave of energy exploded through the hall, shivering along the walls, the ceiling, the floor, through the soul bond itself. Destiny clicked into place. Adrian exhaled, relief and reverence softening every line of his face. He stepped closer, lowering his head until his forehead rested gently against hers. You have no idea, he whispered, voice trembling with emotion. What you just gave me. She breathed against him. Hope? He smiled, small, raw, beautiful. Everything. The council bowed, all of them, in acknowledgement of the bond realized. And as the hall glowed bright with fate's final alignment, Evelyn felt something warm settle deep in her bones. Peace. For the first time since her life began unraveling, she felt peace. Adrian took her hand again. Now he murmured, We write what comes next. She nodded softly. Together, epilogue. The quiet after destiny speaks. 3 months later, the world felt different, not louder, not heavier, just clearer. The forests hummed differently when Evelyn walked their paths. The wind shifted in ways that felt like greeting, and the faint golden glow of the bond under her skin had softened into something warm and steady, like a candle that never extinguished. Life had stopped shaking beneath her feet. The world no longer felt like a battlefield she didn't ask to walk. It felt like a beginning. She stood at the balcony of the high citadel, overlooking the valley where new growth had begun spreading across lands long barren from the curse. Her fingers brushed the polished stone railing, cool beneath her touch. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't have to turn to know who it was. Adrian's presence always arrived like a storm settling. Strong, steady, quietly protective. He stepped beside her, arms lightly crossing as he followed her gaze to the horizon. Your garden is healing faster than the elders predicted, he said softly. Our garden, she corrected. A small smile touched his lips. The rare kind she'd learned was only for her. Right. Our garden. The sunlight caught the faint mark on his arm, her mark, and she traced it gently. You never regret it, she asked. He didn't even hesitate, not even in passing. You gave me part of yourself, and you gave me something I never thought I'd have. His voice softened. A home I didn't know how to want. Her breath stilled. He turned fully toward her then, leaning slightly so their foreheads brushed. "You're not just my bond," he whispered. "You're my peace." Her chest tightened with warmth. He took her hand and guided it to his heart, letting her feel the steady rhythm beneath her palm. "It beats differently now," he murmured, more certain. He looked down at their intertwined hands. "Because it knows where it belongs." She exhaled a shaking breath. "Adrian." But he wasn't asking for anything, not pushing, not claiming, just expressing, something she was learning how to do too. She stepped closer, resting her head against his chest, letting the steady warmth of him ground her. His arms came around her in a slow, gentle circle, not trapping, not gripping, just holding. Like she was something precious, like she was something he was grateful existed. Minutes passed in silence, wrapped in sunlight and quiet warmth. "Do you ever think," she said softly, "that maybe everything that happened wasn't meant to break us, that maybe it was shaping us?" He brushed his chin lightly over her hair. "I don't know what destiny planned." His voice was low, sincere. "But I know we survived it." She smiled faintly. "And you really think we can keep all of this balanced? The councils, the alliances, the bond?" "I do," he said, "because none of it is heavier than losing you would have been." Her heart fluttered, warm and fragile inside her chest. She lifted her head to meet his eyes. "Silver, warm, steady, stay," she whispered. His breath caught, not because he didn't expect the word, but because it still seemed to shake him every time she said it. "I already am," he murmured. Her lips curved. They stood together in quiet peace until the sun dipped lower, sending golden light across the valley. "Adrian?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes? What comes next?" He threaded their fingers together. "Whatever we build," he said, "whatever we choose." She leaned her head against him again. "Together?" His answer wasn't a word. It was the way he pulled her gently into his arms, the way the bond glowed softly between them, the way the world seemed to steady itself when they breathed in unison. "Yes," he whispered into her hair. "Together." The breeze shifted, warm, gentle, carrying the faintest trace of new blossoms across the valley. And Evelyn finally allowed herself to believe it. The war was over. The fear was gone, and what remained was theirs to protect, theirs to heal, theirs to grow, theirs to love, forever if they chose. And they would.